actually coming to a head. I'm not going to hold my breath, but it may be coming to a head. I think there's supposed to be a vote tomorrow. The Republicans tried to get unanimous consent last week, and the Democrats blocked it. After this whole thing, they complained that their newest member they couldn't get confirmed while the shutdown was going on, and so she was waiting in limbo. She was in purgatory for the whole shutdown, and that was a big deal. And she was gonna, as soon as she got confirmed or um, sworn in, not confirmed, sworn in. As soon as she got sworn in, they were gonna vote. They were gonna release the Epstein files, right? That was how this was gonna go. So she gets sworn in, and a Republican puts forward a motion. Let's just go with unanimous consent. Let's all agree. Let's release these files. And, and then the Democrats shoot it down. And a Democrat from California, I assume California, because California is nuts. Their representatives are insane. Said, "Oh no, I mean we want them to be released, but we didn't want to do unanimous consent because, God, then we don't have every one of those Republicans on file saying, everybody saying yay, everybody voting. We just have the group voting, and so it gives you wiggle room, I guess. You can claim, well, it was unanimous consent, and so I didn't want to personally vote for this thing, but my party was going to vote for it, and I didn't want to hold up the vote because I knew it was going to pass anyway. And so it gives you a little bit of wiggle room if something goes bad. If some piece of legislation, Obamacare, for example, um, goes bad, and you can say, well, I wouldn't have voted for it, or I wasn't even there, or whatever, and it was a unanimous consent vote. So that's the claim. So maybe they will actually vote on it tomorrow. Again, I won't hold my breath that that's actually going to change things. The Democrats want to hold on to this. They are using this. They are talking about this as much as possible. And I don't think it's going to work out for them. I don't think, I mean, it's pretty obvious that Trump isn't in the Epstein files. Do you guys agree? I mean, he's not in there. He's not in there in any substantial form. There's not going to be all of a sudden a bunch of charges against Trump based on things that he did in relation to Epstein and the horrible things that Jeffrey Epstein did. He's not. He's not in there, and it's so obvious that I have five main reasons that I'm going to go through that he is not gonna. He's not concerned about this at all. And I'll go through those in just a second. The five big things that I think are obviously showing that Trump is not involved, was not involved in this at all, and he will not. He will, he the mileage that the Democrats are getting out of this is now, while they can continue to talk about, oh, my friend said that their other friend, whose cousin twice removed got groped by Trump because because Trump knew Epstein or whatever. Like that's what they're doing right now. If you're paying attention on X, on CNN, on MSNBC, that's what they're doing nonstop right now. Is well, I just saw something MSNBC a post that was put up on X where a woman said, "Well, I dated Epstein. If you dated Epstein, then you were of age, right? Like you're not saying I was 14 and I dated him because the victims in Epstein's case were like 14. So you dated Epstein, and then Epstein brought me to Trump, and then Trump groped me in front of Epstein, and that was the story. And those are the stories that are coming out just repeatedly. And of course, the redacted emails that the Democrats had to the they released, but they redacted Virginia Giuffre's name to make it look like a new victim because it said something about, oh, Trump was with this quote unquote victim for hours in my house, and nobody's talked about Trump. That's what the email said. Well, it was Virginia Giuffre who was the person who was named in there, and Virginia Giuffre, the most outspoken victim of Epstein, who unfortunately passed away by suicide not that long ago. So God rest her soul. She said that Trump never did anything. She never saw him do anything inappropriate. He didn't do anything inappropriate to her, and she never saw him do anything inappropriate at all. But they redacted these emails to make it look like there's this other victim out there that Epstein was talking about. Wow, this person was with Trump for hours, and nobody talks about that. It was Virginia Giuffre, who has written a book that said, and in it she said Trump didn't do anything. She has talked about it many, many times. But the problem with this for me, the thing that fires me up about this so much is not the files and that Trump might be in the files, and I don't want to protect Trump from whatever damage that could cause. I don't care. Like, if Trump's in those files, then release him, and let him get the justice or whatever that he deserves. But he's not in there. He's absolutely not in there. And there's so much that says that he's not in there. I don't care about that. I am not going to protect somebody who is a conservative, who is a Republican, just because I look at the world through that lens, that I am on the right side, as in the correct side, but also on the right side, as in the conservative side. But absolutely, if somebody, a conservative, a Republican, violated the law, victimized people, they should be held accountable, and they should be held accountable right now. I absolutely would not protect him at all just because of that. What bothers me about this is that the Democrats are dangling justice and accountability in front of all of these victims. All of these people were victimized 15 years ago or so, and they've had to live with this for forever. They didn't get any justice. Epstein, if you don't know, he pled guilty in 2008 to one or two counts, felony counts of soliciting prostitution from a minor. And he got an 18-month prison sentence, which is pretty ridiculous. And then he actually only served 13 months. And I just learned while looking up for this video today, for going live today, that that was all work release. Almost all of the 13 months was work release. So he literally just had to sleep in the prison. He was out on work release during the day. And so I was thinking, well, good God, he could have been actively victimizing girls during the day while he was serving his prison sentence. That's just mind-boggling to me. The case was mishandled. I'm sure intentionally mishandled back then. And so he got a sweetheart deal, and I think it was a 14-year-old girl that was never named who was the victim in that case, who was the person that he solicited prostitution from. And so there are all these other victims, and I thought it was in the, teens or whatever. It sounds like they've identified. I saw a video that I'm going to pull up here about the attorney. His name is Bradley Edwards. Bradley Edwards, the attorney for like 70 victims. 70 victims. And he talks about Trump's involvement from way back in like 2009, starting in 2009. And I'm going to play this for you if I can.
Obviously, our current president has had relationships with Epstein in the past, and there are those Katie Johnson and maybe other victims who accused Trump of being involved in things like this. In my experience, Trump supporters will not listen to anything along those lines. Obviously, we're not a court of law here right now, but are those claims of that case was dropped? It was dropped before it went to court. In your opinion, as a lawyer and your experience, is there anything you can say as to the validity of those claims, or whether or not there will be any more about that?
Nothing at all. The only thing that I can say about President Trump is that he is the only person who, in 2009, when I served a lot of subpoenas on a lot of people, or at least gave notice to some pretty connected people that I wanted to talk to them, he is the only person who picked up the phone and said, "Let's just talk. I'll give you as much time as you want. I'll tell you what you need to know," and was very helpful in the information that he gave, and gave no indication whatsoever that he was involved in anything untoward whatsoever, but had good information that checked out and that helped us, and that we didn't have to take a deposition of him.
That was in 2009?
That was in 2009. So,
do you know if there's any truth to James Patterson's claims that Trump kicked Epstein out of Mar-a-Lago?
I've definitely heard that.
So there you go. So that is the attorney who has represented, you see there on that was End Wokeness on X. End Wokeness. You see there that he lists that this attorney represented over 70 victims, and that he reached out to a whole bunch of people back in 2009, or starting in 2009, about this issue. And Donald Trump is the only person who not only answered the phone, but then said, "Let's talk." And I know stuff about him, and gave actionable intelligence, whatever that is, I don't know. But so, other people who were named that we don't really know their names, we've heard Bill Clinton, we've heard Prince Andrew, his name thrown out there, but that's it. Nobody else that Mr. Edwards contacted wanted anything to do with it. And Trump stepped forward and said, "Here's what I know," and offered to help out. So what this reminds me of, so 2 months ago, they brought a bunch of these victims, whoever wanted to show up, I don't know how many there were, in front of the press, in front of Congress or whatever outside, and did a press conference. And they brought all these women up, and they all got to say whatever they wanted to say, which is great. I hope that felt good, that they got something out of it, something positive, where they, in front of the world, could say that they were a victim of Epstein, and kind of advocate for themselves. But it was all politics, because what they were doing then was they were going, the Epstein Files Transparency Act was what they were there to promote. And it was Republicans and Democrats who had pushed this. And so, again, they're dangling accountability, they're dangling justice in front of these victims, going on 15 plus years, I think, a lot of them. And a lot of them were victimized, I think, over a period of, extended period of time, over multiple years sometimes. Epstein would bebop around the world and meet up with people and victimize them, over a period of time, multiple times over a period of time. And so they brought these women forward and pushed this Transparency Act, but it's all for politics, because it's all to try and continue to keep it in the light, in the media, in the news, that these Epstein files are out there, and that the Democrats want to continue to say that Trump is in those Epstein files, and that's why they haven't been released yet. And they're just getting as much mileage out of this as they can. And, honestly, victims be damned, right? I mean, that the Democrats don't care about the victims at all. They did it. I looked it up. This reminded me of the situation with Brett Kavanaugh when he was being confirmed for the Supreme Court. He was going through his confirmation hearing, and they brought, if you remember, Christine Blasey Ford. I don't remember the details specifically, but I think that she came forward when she knew that he was potentially going to be a Supreme Court justice, and I think she contacted somebody, Nancy Pelosi or somebody on the Democrat side, and I think she wanted to be anonymous. I really do. I feel like she came forward and just wanted to be anonymous and said, "I want you to know that, he did some bad things back years ago." And of course, she didn't remain anonymous. She was actually, her name was thrown out there. And then, of course, she was brought before to testify before Congress. So this whole thing blew up in her face, too. She then had to testify in front of Congress. And she was testifying about, from what I understand, she was testifying about something that happened in high school. That's, she claimed that she was assaulted by Brett Kavanaugh. And I don't know if she even used the term assaulted, but he was inappropriate. I think he was intoxicated at the time, is the allegations. It was like a high school drinking party. He cornered her and touched her inappropriately while intoxicated. And again, I think that she wanted to remain anonymous and just wanted to bring it and was hoping, hey, can you look into his background and maybe you can dig up some. And of course they did. They did all sorts of interviews about people in high school, and it was a chaotic, pretty embarrassing mess. Of course, he had to bring forward this notebook of all these nicknames of his, his people he knew when he was in high school, I think. And so, but again, victim be damned. If she was a real, victim, I'm not saying that she isn't a victim or wasn't a victim. I'm saying that she presented as a victim and they just used her because they wanted to see if they could chop down Brett Kavanaugh. And it didn't work because the Republicans, had enough to push him through. But that's what they do. And that's what's so frustrating. There she is. If you remember, there she is being sworn in before her testimony there. Christine Blasey Ford. That was 7 years ago. Pretty crazy that was 7 years ago. But so the reason that I wanted to do this was that in my mind, there is no way that Trump is in these files. And so the other frustrating part of this for me is that I think Trump just gets some joy out of toying with the Democrats. And I know that Democrats really like to try and drag him through the mud as much as they can. So that's why they're getting as much mileage out of this as they can. But Trump knows that he's not going to be in trouble because there's nothing there. And so I feel like he's toying with them. I feel like it's a bit of a game and both sides are playing a very different game. But I have five main points here as to why I don't think Trump is going to be in trouble, and I don't think Trump is in these Epstein files. Now, you just heard from the attorney who represented over 70 victims, and Trump came forward, or Trump was contacted, and he voluntarily talked for an extended period of time, gave him actionable information about Epstein, told him about Epstein, what he knew about him. And so that's one big reason that I don't think that there's anything in these files. I hope that they get released though, because I bet there are some other big names in there, but we'll see. So one reason is that Trump cut ties from Epstein back in 2007. So at Mar-a-Lago, allegedly Epstein had groped a young girl at his club And I think that Virginia Giuffre said that she actually worked at Mar-a-Lago, and that's where she was contacted by Ghislaine Maxwell, and she was pulled out of there figuratively, not um, figuratively pulled out of there by Ghislaine and brought to Jeffrey Epstein, and that was kind of the start of that. And I think her dad actually worked at Mar-a-Lago at the time too. And so two things there was that Epstein was recruiting victims, pulling victims out of Mar-a-Lago, and he actually allegedly groped a young, like a young teenager at the club, and so he was banned in 2007 from Mar-a-Lago. Now, there's, I guess, a little discrepancy whether he was ever a member or if he was just a guest, and whether they just um, canceled his membership or if he was never a member. I think that they said that they actually canceled his membership. Now, the allegation is that, or what was initially talked about, why they had a falling out was over a real estate deal where Trump outbid Epstein for a piece of property in Florida there, and he did outbid him, and so the allegation, or some people think that it was over this real estate deal that went bad, but most people think that it was actually based on the fact that Epstein was a pile of garbage, and Trump was trying to distance himself from him. Another reason was that I don't think he's in these files is that Trump never went to this little St. James Island, the island, the Epstein Island that everybody talks about. Trump never went there. There's no evidence that shows that he ever went there. He went on the private plane of Epstein's, which apparently was called Lolita Express, which is gross, of course, in itself. He did ride on that plane, but there were 7 trips that they have identified, and they were from Palm Beach to New York or Atlantic City. 0 flights to Little St. James in the U.S. Virgin Islands. Trump did not make it there. Trump said in 2019 he was invited down there and didn't do anything. It didn't go. Didn't choose to go and turned it down. Another reason is that Epstein himself said that Trump didn't participate in Epstein's activities. There were emails released recently that in that Epstein said that Trump knew about the girls but didn't participate, and he never even got a massage. If you don't know, typically, from my understanding, typically what Epstein's grooming behavior was: get the girl around him and then say that they were there for a massage. You're gonna give me a massage. That's what you're here for. The girl would then go to massage him. He would be naked. She would actually massage him for some period of time, and then he would make them have sex. And so in this email, he's saying Trump didn't even get the massage part that we're using as the gateway to abusing and assaulting these girls. There is nothing that says that he did that. In these emails, it does kind of look like Epstein was bitter. He was maybe he knew that Trump kind of helped with that investigation as far as bringing forward that lawyer bringing forward all these other victims, but there was nothing in the emails that have. And again, these are the same emails that the Democrats are trying to use to show that there's a gotcha there. There's smoke only. It's just their smoke screen. There's no fire there. like I said, the victim's attorney said Trump was actually cooperative and helped identify Epstein's behavior. He offered to help. He even offered apparently his private jet to help buzz this attorney around to do his investigation. And the biggest one is that there are no accusations against Trump from these victims. Dozens of Epstein Maxwell victims have come forward with detailed allegations against them, multiple lawsuits and depositions. Giuffre, for example, not a single victim has accused Trump of sexual abuse or participating in the trafficking ring. Trump mentioned only in passing as a social acquaintance. He's never tied to the criminal acts. So he's not in there. We need to get these files released so that we can move on from this. This is Russiagate was their big distractor in his first term, and this is at least one of their big distractors in his term now, because they just want to keep pushing this, keep that out there, and talk about that, and then try and prevent the Republicans who have the trifecta still from getting any legislation done, because we're just constantly fighting this. So hopefully, again, they're supposed to go to a vote tomorrow, and hopefully that happens, and maybe we can push forward from there and actually get something done. But he's not in there. Trump's not in there. This is just all a waste of time. Thanks for watching.